talk about a subject that's pretty common and often misunderstood, and that is dogs who mount, jump on people, humping is what other people refer it to, basically jumping on you, wrapping their legs around you. It can be pretty intense. I mean, some dogs really latch on, won't let go. They can start grabbing at you. And a lot of people are uncomfortable or embarrassed and don't like to talk about it, but it's a pretty common problem. And here are some of the reasons why it happens and some things you can do to redirect the behavior. So, why do dogs do it? I think the very first thing people jump to, the first conclusion they come to when their dog is doing it, is they assume it's some type of a sexual behavior. And I can tell you 9 out of 10 times it isn't true. People will then say, well, my vet or someone told me that if I spay or neuter my dog, they'll stop. I can tell you there's probably hundreds of thousands of dogs out there who were spayed and neutered because they were humping and it didn't stop, because that wasn't what was driving the problem. That type of behavior can start in dogs as they get to an age reaching sexual maturity, but that's rarely what's causing the problem. And we're not talking about dogs behaving that way with each other. We're talking about directing that behavior towards people. So what we do know with that is it's a hyperarousal behavior, meaning your dog is overexcited, overstimulated, or overtired. I think we don't take into account how many problematic behaviors develop when our puppy or dog is overtired. There can be more barking, more biting, more jumping, more mischievous behavior, and yes, more humping. And that could be towards people, towards an object like a pillow or their dog bed, could be towards another dog. But a lot of times we see this behavior happening, and the first thing we want to do is run them to the vet and get them spayed or neutered. And as I said, it rarely solves the problem because that wasn't what was driving the problem. It's fatigue, it's being tired. As puppies and dogs get tired, it sort of becomes this default behavior. I even refer to it as mounting tension. As their fatigue increases, their coping skills decrease, and that tends to just be an outlet for being tired, being frustrated, just basically being done. And the best thing you can do is if you notice that you see the same time every day, like, yeah, it's really bad at night, or it's really bad in the middle of the afternoon, you need to look at how much rest, sleep, like in their crate or in a confined area that your puppy or dog is getting. Because I find dogs who are really notorious for this behavior are typically not getting enough sleep, and they don't have a structured day. They're kind of just working their own program, and the behavior just keeps increasing. When we help these puppies and dogs get adequate amounts of sleep or just quiet time, somewhere to go chew on a bone or play with their toy or take them on a walk, we can see the behavior decrease. So sleep and fatigue is definitely one cause. Another is just basically being overstimulated. There's too much going on. You've got your puppy doing 20 different things. People are playing with them and walking with them and taking them out to play fetch. And now I'm going to brush you, and now I'm going to train you, and you're just going. This puppy is just, or dog is just overloaded. And that can be an outlet. That's just sort of a release for all of this stress. So we need to look at what we're expecting out of our puppy or dog on any given day, and is that contributing to the behavior? It also can be just an inappropriate way of getting attention or interacting with people. I see it's not often what's driving it, but I have seen it to be one of the reasons that puppies will do this. And sometimes it's because people think it's funny and they just sort of participate in it or they encourage it. Believe it or not, some people think it's funny or fun. I particularly don't, but we have to look at what's triggering this behavior in our dog. So those are the 3 common reasons why puppies and dogs are doing it. So how do you stop it? What do you do? Well, as I said, you can have a conversation with your vet, but I can tell you over the years how many people, myself included, 20 plus years ago, we had a beagle, a female beagle, and it's important to note, humping behavior is not strictly male dogs. It's male and female. So we had a female beagle, and she was a terrible, terrible humper, whether it was people or pillows or her bed. And at the time, this was 20 plus years ago, we were told, oh, you need to spay her and it'll go away. Oh no, she was a very young dog who was spayed, who never stopped humping. It was just kind of one of her behaviors. And this was 25 years ago, before I was working as a professional, and I took some terrible advice from a dog person at the time, and it only made the problem worse. So, you know, we need to not think that a surgical procedure is going to fix a behavior problem. Now, I will say, if you have a 2-year-old dog, especially a male dog, who you're having a lot of problems with this behavior, neutering them can help, but it doesn't always help, because again, if this is an established behavior, you can take the hormones away, but you still have a behavior that's been practiced for 2 years. So I'm going to get back to what do? How do you redirect it? That's the key. You need to interrupt it immediately and redirect the behavior. So that might mean a nap in the crate. If it's 7:30 at night and my puppy is just assaulting me, I'm going to say, you know, he just probably needs to go to bed, or at least go take a half-hour nap and take the edge off. So that's one form of redirection, is let them have the rest that they probably need. The second is redirect them with something else they can play with. You can give them a chew toy. They need an outlet for something. Give them something appropriate. Take them out in the yard and play with them, or do a couple minutes of training in the house. Maybe they're really bored and frustrated, and just a couple minutes of interaction with them is all they need to really just sort of, you know, push them in a different direction. You know, the third thing is you can use a leave it cue. So if I have a dog who I see going up towards a pillow and I know they have a history of humping that, or towards a person, I will use a leave it cue, immediately redirect them, but go do this instead. So it's one thing to, again, call them off of the behavior, but then you need to give them something else to do, whether that's sleep, a chew toy, play, training, whatever that looks like for your dog. And it might be different based on the time of day that it's happening. Some humping is driven by anxiety, and we call that hyperarousal. So if you have a puppy or dog who just really gets themselves worked into a frenzy, and that's sort of how it explodes and presents itself, then you really need to look at ways that you need to start helping address those anxiety issues. A lot of times, again, it's lack of sleep. But sometimes it's true, like generalized anxiety or an anxious behavior, they're afraid of something, and it just sort of morphs in that way. But the bottom line is, punishing the dog for this behavior is really not going to solve the problem, and it's not going to help your dog at all. It might be an outlet for you thinking, I'm going to just tell him I don't like that, but it really isn't going to change anything. So if you're dealing with this early on, especially with puppies, you need to quickly start redirecting and intervening when you start seeing the behavior present itself. Common way I see this present itself is kids crawling around or on the floor and the puppy's coming up and jumping on them. Sometimes kids think it's funny and they might start laughing, but it really is a serious problem that you need to interrupt quickly, because somebody can get hurt. So we need to make sure that we're interacting with our puppies in a way that is appropriate, that we're making sure they're getting enough rest, that we've trained them to have at least the ability to call them off of something, like if they're mounting, going towards a person or an object, that you can cue them with a leave it, or at least get their attention long enough to get them to want to come towards you. But we just have to understand that sometimes this is just developmental. I've had puppies who are notorious humpers, and you know, with lots of training and maturity and just managing the situation, completely outgrew it, and they were definitely not doing that as adult dogs. But it's behavioral, and we have to treat it as such. We can't just say, we're gonna scream me out the dog, he's gonna quit, or run him out and get him spayed or neutered and it's gonna go away, because you'll be really disappointed when that doesn't happen. So if you're experiencing a puppy or dog who is mounting, go through those first 3 things and say to yourself, is this puppy getting enough rest? Is this puppy getting redirected quickly? Is this puppy just frustrated and bored? Like, what's going on here? And then you can begin to address the problem and redirect it.